This is episode 508 of the Locked On Rangers podcast. I'm joined today by a very special crossover episode with Paul Holden of Locked On Rockies. We talk all things Jon Gray, a little bit about Trevor Story, and about what the state of the Rockies team is and why they could have been the Rangers but just decided not to be because they didn't want to spend big. But first, thank you guys for making Locked On Rangers your first listen of the day. If you haven't already, go follow me on Twitter at Brice Paterik, follow the show at Locked On Rangers, and go subscribe on YouTube or wherever the heck you get your podcast. A really great episode today. All that and more coming up on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on to the Texas Rangers. I'm your host, Brice Paterik, in a special crossover episode with the great Paul Holden of Locked On Rockies. We're here today to talk about all things Rangers, Rockies, Jon Gray, Trevor Story, dysfunction, happiness, the two opposite off seasons that a person could have. Paul, how are you doing today?
I'm excited to be here talking with you, Brice, but in terms of the offseason, frustrated, but some upsides where, they're bringing back some nice pieces that saw some success last year, but Jon Gray is a big piece to lose.
Yeah, I am still so confused about why the Rockies didn't extend him a qualifying offer. Like, that just makes absolutely no sense in my mind. Is there like a limit? Did they extend one to Trevor Story? Like, what is there any logic there? If there is none, you can just say, no, the Rockies are just real dumb right now.
I think they thought that they could get him for the discounted price of less years and less money. But if I'm Jon Gray, I'm taking the best deal offered to me at this stage in my career without a doubt. He wanted it to be Colorado. I don't know why Colorado couldn't match what the Rangers offered. There's really nothing in that I know of that would make it think that they couldn't go out and add the extra. Because I'm pretty sure the Rangers just added an extra year, and I think like maybe $2 million or something like that on top of it, where I don't know how the Rockies missed on a guy that they loved, drafted and developed, their whole mantra, and it's a pitcher that said on the record multiple times, I want to pitch at Coors Field. And yeah, in terms of the qualifying offer, I don't know if there's a rule. They did offer Trevor Story a qualifying offer, but I'm pretty sure teams can offer multiple qualifying offers. I don't think there's a rule that says you can't do that. I don't buy any payroll issues with the Rockies because they're a top 10 team in attendance. They got the All-Star game. The Rockies don't get to sit and hide behind this small market, mid-market thing that they've already tried to hide behind in this new front office structure. But when you look at the timeline of Jon Gray, it simply is a failure. It simply doesn't make sense. He's a player that was on record in the season going into his free agency or potential free agency saying he wanted to be back, rejects an offer, doesn't get a qualifying offer. So now the Rockies don't even get anything. Jon Gray, honestly, a top 5 pitcher in Rockies history, probably when you look at statistics and what he's brought and his success, walks away for nothing.
Yeah, it's just losing him for nothing feels like something you absolutely can't do. And the Rockies have, lost a couple of big players for, seems like nothing for no reason. It's now, probably 3 unless something really weird happens and Trevor Story signs back there, which I don't know about you, but I don't think there's much possibility. Obviously, you have more insight. How large a possibility do you have? I know John Heyman was tweeting about, like, the Rockies have interest in retaining Trevor Story. Like, I'm sure they do, but I'm not sure how much interest Trevor Story has in coming back. Does he have any?
I'm going to say the door isn't completely shut. I think the door remained cracked. I kind of think that was the analogy I was using. I think Trevor Story is intrigued by the idea of being the guy, being the face, and being the leader, and being comfortable at a place that he can go hit 495-foot bombs. And if you look at some of the pieces of the Rockies have a good infield. They brought back C.J. Cron, who was one of their best offensive players of last year. He's not the splashiest big name, but he's a solid first. He's not incredible at first base, but he's better than Ian Desmond and Daniel Murphy. And he plays. He's an actual first baseman who has shown that he can swing it. So, those two being in the lineup together shows some promise. And I believe Ryan McMahon should have won the Gold Glove at third base. Now I get to feel, I guess, how everyone else in the National League felt with Nolan winning the Gold Gloves and things. I really truly see the popularity contest, because Ryan McMahon was stellar and had better, defensive statistics than Nolan this year. And Brendan Rodgers is one of the most, if not the most exciting young Rocky on the team. So the infield's great. But if I'm Trevor Story, I'm only coming back if teams are really hesitant about me because of my elbow and my Rockies, playing my Rockies home road splits. If you're Trevor Story and you're getting 4 to 5 year deals in the not $200 million range, and the Rockies come out and say, here's 7 years, $200 million, I think he would probably entertain that. I think he at least would think about it and take that into consideration. But it's a less than 3% chance that Trevor Story returns to the team. And yeah, Brice, you mentioned this is a team that is losing all these players. You're losing Jon Gray and Nolan, and Nolan's a different story, but you're losing Jon Gray and Trevor Story for one draft pick, one compensatory draft pick, because Trevor Story did reject the qualifying offer. Instead of, I don't know, trading them to the Rangers in the middle of the season when they might have been interested, or trading them to these other teams and getting other stuff back, including prospects. It's a head scratcher. Trevor Story is more complicated than Jon Gray, but again, Jon Gray was awesome. I mean, honestly, when I look at Jon Gray, sure, he's not Max Scherzer, he's not these names, but he's a guy that takes the bump every third, fourth, fifth day that I'm fine with. And if he has an off day, that's a bummer. But if he's on, he's striking out 9 people a game. He's limiting the hits, and he cruises, and he looks good doing it. It truly is a head scratcher, because the GM that was appointed at the end of the offseason, Bill Schmidt, managed this trade deadline, was involved in the drafting process, and that's his whole thing, is drafting and developing. That's where he came from in the scouting department. I just really don't see how you lose Jon Gray. Trevor Story, it's a different story, but losing Jon Gray really is a head scratcher.
Yeah, it's definitely made no sense to me from the outside. I'm glad that it made no sense to you from the inside, because there's not really a good explanation for not giving a guy who, like you said, wanted to be there. I mean, the Rangers had some experience with that, and Joey Gallo saying he wanted to be there, and the Rangers traded him for cents on the dollar. I mean, it ended up being some pretty decent prospects, like, I don't know, Josh Smith might be fine. Ezekiel Duran had a really great Arizona Fall League, but, Glenn Otto seemed like fine. Other than that, I think those were just the big three that were in there. There might have been one more guy that I can't remember, but those were the big three. And, I mean, yeah, I get the frustration of losing a guy who wanted to be there, who liked being there, and was a star there, because those guys are so hard to draft and develop. But you know what's not hard? Built Bars. Built Bars are soft, they're easy to chew, and they are the perfect holiday dessert. This holiday season you can grab a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, or maybe even better than a candy bar. And there's so many flavors. It's a really hard time choosing, and it gets contentious. What are some of your favorite flavors, Paul?
See, my favorite thing about Built Bars, I have a big sweet tooth. I'm really high on I love me sugary chocolate, especially. So if it's got chocolate involved in it, I'm usually going for it. And that's what I love about Built Bar, is it being that low sugar. I feel a little bit better about having that sweet treat.
I really do too. If you're friends with Santa, you can tell Santa to throw a few Built Bars in that stocking, and you can cozy up to something warm. A holiday secret is to dip your Built Bar in piping hot cup of hot cocoa. Let it melt a little bit. Give that beverage a Built Bar flavor. Plus, you'll have a nice little melty Built Bar to go with it. But keep some napkins on hand, because it can get a little messy. So our listeners can go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. I also want to talk to you guys about Stance socks. These are the best socks. I know, Paul, you've had some really great experience with these socks. They're, I believe, the official Major League Baseball socks, if I'm remembering correctly.
So what's really cool about them, I don't have baseball ones, but I have Larry Bird taking a jump shot. They basically take these pictures of, athletes and big moments in games, and they make them on the sock, and it's a really good image on the sock. Like when you pull it up, it's not it kind of stretches the proper way where it kind of makes the picture still look the right way. So it's a really cool way to have your kind of your favorite sports moments, not only your favorite athletes, because I got like Larry Bird taking a jump shot in the finals or something on these socks that and I bought these years ago, and I still wear them to this day. I still wash and wear, and these are, I'm saying year 6 on these socks of how well, because they're the designer socks. I don't wear them every day, but they've lasted this long, and they capture some of your favorite sports moments right there on your feet.
Well, that's fantastic. I love showing off some fancy socks, and Stance believes that the perfect fit matters more than fitting in, that those who feel good do good. Go see for yourself. Register for an account at stance.com and get 15% off your first purchase. Use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout to apply. Enjoy the color and comfort of a life less ordinary with Stance. Now, we talked a little bit about Jon Gray, but I want to get into the nitty-gritty of what to expect from this guy. Obviously, his numbers are inflated because pitching at Coors, but this is a guy who I've really liked watching pitch and has been... Trevor Story talked about how frustrating it was. Not Trevor Story. Corey Seager. Sorry, the other, the now Ranger, Corey Seager had talked about how difficult it was to face off against Jon Gray. So, what kind of a pitcher are the Rangers getting? Is this like a is this an ace kind of caliber guy? Is he like a solid number 2? What kind of expectations should the Rangers have for this guy?
Well, I don't know much about the Rangers' rotation, so I don't know what their status is. But Jon Gray,
I can tell you, there's not much. There's a bunch of young guys. At this point, he's the only veteran. The great, Mike Foltynewicz and Jordan Lyles are not coming back, so he is basically the only veteran. There's Dane Dunning, Taylor Hearn, and at this point, that's it. I think they might add one more pitcher, but at this point, it's basically Jon Gray is the default number 1. I don't know if he's true ace, but you really liked what you saw, I think, in Colorado for sure.
I love Jon Gray. I will say I'm a little nervous about him being the number 1 starter, because Jon Gray had a ton of expectations, and and they were huge expectations, and he never hit those. But what he did hit was someone that was able to negate Coors Field, to get comfortable there and strike people out. What I love about Jon Gray is he gets strikeouts. If you go, baseball reference here, strikeouts last year, 157 strikeouts in the past full seasons. Obviously 2020, I kind of throw out 2020 stats. I know I shouldn't, but there's
that's fair.
Only so much you can really get from that, especially from a starting pitcher. Jon Gray was 2-4 in 2020, so it's again, but triple digits in strikeouts, including 185 strikeouts, but that was back in 2016. That's what you're looking for. Leaning on him as the number 1 is probably something I'd hesitate, because Jon Gray can falter a little bit. People can hit him if he's not striking people out. People can square him up, and the walks are something. All the Rockies pitchers had issues with walks this past year, and that's something that you really need to watch out for. And it's somewhere at Coors Field that you really have to be careful of. Jon Gray did have the second most walks allowed in his career this past season in 2021 with 58. But 58 walks to 157 strikeouts, you're all right with those. And again, this is why I love Jon Gray as a 3-4-5. If I know Jon Gray is coming in knowing Jon Gray would come in the middle of a series after Herman Marquez would go out and throw a good one, Senzatella could throw a good one, Rockies maybe are in a close series, not take the road out of the equation, from last year for the Rockies. But Jon Gray was, and that pitching staff was a reason why the Rockies were so good at home, is that they were able to go back and they were able to be successful pitching there. So, that's where, and he does have a history of injuries. That's the other thing too. So there is things that has me hesitant to be like, oh man, you got your ace, you got your starter. But as a veteran guy who's pitched not only in a difficult thing, but against some of the best, I think the Rockies pitchers also do have the thing of coming in saying, I have to go against the Dodgers. That's Jon Gray's been throwing against these Dodger teams his entire career, and then throwing the Giants of last year, and the Padres fell apart, but the Padres can still come into town and hit 4 or 5 home runs a game, and they have all this power. Arizona, we're not to worry about them, except for the fact of, except for Jon Gray's history against them in wild card games, because that's the thing. The Rockies did turn to Jon Gray in those big playoff moments, and unfortunately, it wasn't as good as he could have been. But again, I have nothing but good things to say about him, because if he's going to be the leader for some young guys, I think that's going to really be a benefit, because he helped mentor some young Rockies pitchers that are still there. Got to talk to was there to help Kyle Freeland get in the mix, the Colorado kid, and was been there for a bit, and again took on the challenges and was a key part of the Rockies' small playoff contention window that where the Rockies' success wasn't part of Jon Gray. And I did see a tweet that he was responsible for 20% of, I believe, Fangraph's win above replacement for the Rockies this past season. So that's a considerable percentage.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I say he's the number one right now, because they're still looking at Clayton Kershaw, and I still think it's a pretty decent chance they land him. Obviously, Clayton Kershaw has had a couple of health issues. He's had the back issues, and now this year with the elbow injuries. And I think hopefully by the second half of this contract, definitely by the last year, the fourth year of this contract, I think Jon Gray will be about the number 3 in this rotation, because hopefully Jack Leiter will be up, and some of these other guys might be, moving more into these young prospects, and Cole Winn and him and some of the other guys like Zach Kent and a few other names that are under the radar at the AA level right now. But right now they just need some veteran solid arms. They're not going to compete next year. You don't go from 102 losses to 100 or so wins in just 1 year. That just literally never happens. So I do like what you're saying about him being a veteran presence. They just need a veteran, because right now there's not a whole lot of veterans on this team on the pitching staff side. They obviously got their big guys up the middle in Seager and Simeon to be the clubhouse leaders for the offense, but you need some of those old guys, old hosses who've been around the bend and have faced off against the big bats, obviously, like they have in the NL West, and know how to handle it.
That's what you're getting from Jon Gray, and he's going to be perfect for that fit. And, honestly, I think this is probably a good thing for him in his stage of life, because he can go and he's learned. I mean, Jon Gray has kind of been through the professional baseball, the ups and the downs. He's, high-level prospect, dealing with high expectations, and then things not panning out, and then, being in the majors for a bit, and then getting sent down to go work on things. He's done it all, and battling injuries. He's kind of gone through that whole baseball journey that I think will be a really nice resource for young pitchers there in the Rangers organization.
Yeah, you can definitely bet on that. You know what else you can bet on? At betonline.ag. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football season continues the march to the playoffs. BetOnline remains your number one sports spot for all the sports action this season. You can bet on things like how many innings is Jon Gray gonna pitch for the Rangers this year. How good are the Rockies gonna be? I don't know. What would you set the over under on losses for the Rockies next season? Because when you're losing, for me, I always measure it by losses. It's like which side of the 500 line you're on. It's like, all right, we're gonna either go for 90 wins this year or 90 losses. It's kind of that measuring stick for you. How well do you think the Rockies are going to do? What would you place your bets on? If I set the over-under at 92 losses, I don't know. How many did the Rockies finish with this year?
I think they avoided that. Let me see. But, okay, so there's a little bit to this. If the Rockies
87 losses. There we go.
Yeah, if the Rockies don't sign a outfield bat, you take the over let's just say on the losses, you take over 87 losses if they don't bring in a bat this year and they lose all the people that they did. However, if they do bring a bat in, I'm going to say they lose under 85. I would go under 85 on the losses for last year.
Almost 500. Wow. Yeah, absolutely. So you can sign up today, receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus, because BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Now, let's talk a little about Trevor Story, because I thought, in my extreme pessimism, which now seems, at the time, I still feel like it's warranted, but now in hindsight seems, wow, this is so stupid. Of course this team is going to spend big and have the best free agency period of all time. But I thought Trevor Story was a natural lock for the Rangers. I thought that the Yankees weren't going to cry poor. I thought that Detroit wasn't going to cry poor. I thought Detroit was going to go get Carlos Correa. I thought that the Yankees were going to go get Corey Seager. and the Rangers be like, I guess we get Trevor Story, or maybe they panic and get Javi Baez. But I thought this was a done deal. Where did you think that Trevor Story was going to land, and I guess where do you think he's going to land now?
Texas seemed like the spot. I am curious. I do wonder if maybe it was that he's just. I think the Trevor Story situation. I talked a little bit about this on a crossover with one of the local media people here. I think Trevor and his team talked about what was coming with the lockout, and they kind of wanted to see what post-lockout was going to be because he didn't have the Seager and Correa name. He had the down 2021 year with the Rockies kind of aura surrounding him and the elbow issues. So I thought the Rangers were a top spot, especially once the Rangers started making moves. And when they got Jon Gray, I was kind of considering, I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if Jon Gray sent in the text, to just be like, hey, I'm here. You know what I'm about. You know, I know you're a Texas guy. Let's go do this thing together. And I don't know if they were like as that close in that way, but I definitely, after Jon Gray went to the Rangers, I did think that that's where Trevor Story was going because I thought that connection and the Rangers, being in the mindset where we're not going to be able to land these big names from out of the grasp of the Yankees and the bigger teams. So I'm excited. Honestly, the Rangers doing what they're doing is good for baseball. I think it's an exciting an opportunity for them. And as for where Trevor Story's going to end up, I have honestly no idea, but I unfortunately can see it being like the Yankees. I can see it being one of the big, because, Trevor in my opinion, Trevor's a superstar, and I think he wouldn't mind going to play in a place where he can be put on that platform. I was talking to Lucas Smith. He still thinks that he might end up in St. Louis. And if Trevor Story and Nolan Arenado are playing on the left side of the infield for a team that isn't purple, I think I might have a stroke. So I really hope it's not that. But my wild card team, if I had a choice, if I had to say of a team that wasn't the Rockies for Trevor Story to go back to, because I had a conversation with my, again, in the same crossover I did, was would you rather Chris Bryant or Trevor Story? And I don't think there's a free agent that I'd want the Rockies to get other than Trevor Story. I think what he can bring to your team and what he brings to the current Rockies would be a huge benefit because, like I said, that infield is better with Trevor Story, and there's an option to help fill in that outfield thing while you wait for your top prospects, which are both outfielders. So my wild card hope is that he ends up a Seattle Mariner. And then he can go play in this really fun new AL West. I can go watch him play down the street from where I'm at and go be on this fun power, and add another power bat to a team. And the Mariners can just be a home run hitting team with some fun offense. But I think, though, messing with Trevor Story and moving him away from shortstop is a mistake. So I think wherever he ends up, he should be the shortstop for your team. The Padres putting him in center field doesn't make any sense to me. And, I can see maybe a third base switch, but the guy went to the school of Troy Tulowitzki. Like, I don't know why you wouldn't want him to be there and has shown Gold Glove caliber defense at short for a long, long time. If I was to move him anywhere, I'd move him to second because then I'd be more okay with his arm. If I was to move him because I'm worried about his elbow, I'm putting him at second. I'm not putting him at third. And I'm definitely not having him play center field.
Yeah, the center field move is always wild. I mean, nobody's Fernando Tatis Jr. to just walk out there and end up being an above-average defender in a position you never freaking played before. But no, I was about to say the same thing as Seattle. I think that makes a lot of sense for him. I'm not sure if I think there have been some rumors about him going there.
Yes, there has been a couple of, nothing too crazy, but the classic, the Mariners have been in talks with Trevor Story type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's in talks with everybody at this point.
Right.
You talked a little bit about Brendan Rodgers being a fun, exciting thing. And you talked about the Rockies also being kind of an above-average market team because Denver's a big city. Like, there's a lot of big city energy there. Like, there's a lot of these other markets that aren't as big that may have been more aggressive in the past. But I'm curious because they feel about comparable. I mean, Dallas is a little bit bigger. DFW Metroplex is a bit of a bigger market. But I'm curious as to your thoughts, because we've talked about this before, I think, and maybe I bet both of us have talked about this on our show, of teams crying poor and not actually going for it and not spending big on their free agents. That's what the Rangers just did. It's like, here's a really simple market inefficiency. Let's go pay actual what should be market value for these stars, and nobody else is going to match it. I guess they're going to come here. Cool. But do you think the Rockies might, try that? Is that something that's just too wild beyond their pedigree, or is there more of a history of just kind of cheaping out.
It's a history of cheaping out. It's a history of bad management. It's a history of, I mean, what am I, as a Rockies fan, how am I supposed to feel confident about this team going to better itself when they haven't gone out and signed a free agent in years? They haven't offered a free agent contract to a non-former Rocky in what feels like 3 years. They haven't, and I don't know how you can have the money to pay Nolan and then no one else. And then again, sit there and be comfortable. That's where it boils down with this free agent stuff. It does come down to the Nolan situation where they signed a franchise. They finally showed that they were willing to pay big bucks for a big time, because Nolan was gonna. They weren't gonna give him the years and the money, Nolan was gone, because every team was gonna go out and say, hell yeah, I want Nolan Arenado on my team. And so the Rockies were finally like, let's get this guy locked down, paid, but then they're like, well, here's the opt out that you didn't ask for. Here's the trade, here's the stuff, and it's like, why? And then it's, let me take the side of Jeff Bridich and trade you and pay the St. Louis Cardinals, a team that definitely does not need that financial help, $50 million to have Nolan Arenado go win a Gold Glove and bat 300 for them, and and help the team go on a historic streak into the playoffs. And then they're paying, so they didn't just pay the $50 million all in one thing. They paid him last year. The Rockies are paying Nolan Arenado this year, and the Rockies are paying Nolan Arenado the following year.
Oh, so Bobby Bonilla
not play
style.
baseball for the Colorado Rockies. So to sit here and be like, to think that the Rockies are going to go after and spend money on people, I have just no confidence, because I'm excited that the Rockies brought back the free agents from the team last year that they did. Getting Elias Diaz, CJ Cron under deals, those are two positions the Rockies have struggled with for so long, and those two players are literally all they needed 2 years ago to make it better for Nolan and more exciting, because the Rockies just simply didn't invest around Nolan, and then they wanted to build a narrative that said, well, he's this bad attitude, bad apple player guy, and it's like, no, you literally told this guy, hey, we were in the playoffs. We were a game away from winning the NL West in 2018. To go on and then just absolutely fall on your face and alienate your literal best probable player ever, a la Larry Walker, who's the Hall of Famer. Until Nolan's a Hall of Famer, Larry Walker is the gold standard of Rockies players right now. And then you trade him for Nolan Arenado, that's a haul. You need to get a haul. And Austin Gomber was fine. And I don't know about these prospects. We'll see. But I have no confidence in the Rockies' free agent abilities right now. And there's no reason to be. I mean, to see these things, it's like, yeah, go get Nick Castellanos, because you can pay Nick Castellanos to be here, because the Rockies were that bad, but they're still top 10 in attendance every single year. And if they're not top 10, they're top 15. They're still selling tickets. I mean, the Rays would kill to have the fans that the Rockies have. I mean, it's crazy. And it's for me, it's hard, because most of those fans are not Rockies fans at Coors Field. When the Dodgers and the Giants are in town, it is an away game for the Rockies, and that honestly sucks. So I know I kind of went off on a tangent there, but deep seated, that's where a lot of my frustrations as a Rockies fan lie, is this team sitting there saying, like, we can't go. They literally said that they're a mid-market team that can't go get these big free agents. And I just don't believe that offensive-minded players don't want to come and bat at Coors Field and stick in right field and let Charlie Blackmon DH or DH for the Rockies. I think that can be a really exciting thing. Pitching, that's a whole different story. You gotta treat people like Jon Gray right. People that want to pitch at Coors Field, you gotta say, all right, the Rangers hit you with that, we'll match it, and here's another $1 million, just because you've been here and did that. And it's so weird that the Rockies are so loyal in some places, and then completely throw the loyalty out the window in the others. It blows my mind.
Gosh, no, I feel that, and maybe part of the reason that you have so many non-Rockies fans that are coming to those games, because it's a beautiful ballpark. Like, it is.
Coors Field, Dick Mumford has created an excellent baseball viewing experience for the fan and the non-fan. If you're not a fan, you can go have a drink at the bar and look at the mountains and look at the field. It's gorgeous. Of course, Denver in the summer rules. But yeah, but then you're like, who's batting after Raimel Tapia? We got this Jonathan Daza, Raimel Tapia, and CJ Cron. It's like, This team used to have Nolan Arenado, Trevor Story, and DJ LeMahieu as the 2, 3, 4, with Charlie Blackmon in the prime of his career. And then they were like, Ian Desmond, Daniel Murphy, hear me out. You've never played first base, but you're gonna. And then it's just like, why? Why?
It would be so sad that they wasted such a handsome man's baseball talent and putting him at first base. Gosh. That was a guy with the Rangers 1 year. He made an impact. Like, everyone still loves Ian Desmond very much. Like, he's a great dude. And
Ian Desmond is an incredible human being, but his performance, he is statistically one of the worst Rockies ever. Like, and they paid him a lot of money, but God bless what he does off the field, and you know, he's a great presence in there. But that's the thing. It's just like, there's just so many moves where it's just like, huh? And then, like, how do you sit there as a Rockies exec being confident knowing that you're on Twitter and every single thing that comes out of meetings from executives is the Rockies don't know what they're doing. The Rockies are crazy. The Rockies are doing things way out of the ordinary. I have not a clue what the Rockies are doing. But then you're told how many times you got to be hit over the head knowing that this is the GM. We know that this is the guy all ready to be here. And so far in Bill Schmidt's GM tenure, we've re-signed some decent utility players and lost Jon Gray and Trevor Story for a draft pick.
Well, hey, at least you have a GM now, you know?
Yeah.
Baby steps.
Yeah,
Baby steps.
that whole one sentence where they said, we're going to consider going outside the organization, that lasted all 5 minutes. Because that's what I want the Rockies to do, honestly. I think the Rockies desperately need a breath of fresh air from the outside to come in and embrace this unique baseball team and this unique baseball environment. Because it's there. It's just the Rockies didn't have an analytic team. Like, they have the biggest analytic team they have in years now. And literally, and I'm not kidding, there was a report that was saying and this was maybe because of the pandemic or whatever, but that members of the analytics team were also doing laundry for the players. So,
no.
And it was a small team at that. And so it's like, you're a team manager, but you're also going to do some analytics for us. Like, that was, I think, the role, the idea for them to have. And it's just like, Moneyball came out like 20 years ago at this point. It feels like, you know, like everyone else has been doing this stuff. Go watch that. Just go watch Brad Pitt do that movie and then be like, oh, yeah, we could try that.
We could do it.
I know Moneyball's like the fictional thing, but that's what I'm saying. It's just like, but no, you know, that guy in the organization, Bill Schmidt's been a Dick Monfort guy for years, and that's how you get promoted in the Rockies organization. They just brought back Clint Hurdle to do something today. It's, you know, which is Clint Hurdle had some success, but I guess he's going to live in Florida and sometimes fly to Denver and then meet the minor league teams at their sites and as a special assistant to Bill Schmidt. It's like Colorado sports and bringing back their icons in the front office. They do it all, you know, Elway in there in the Broncos, Sakic's running the Avs, you know. Dikembe Mutombo should start running the Nuggets, I guess. I don't know, you know, but yeah, it's a head scratcher. The Rockies are a head scratcher.
Well, I feel like that's a good enough place to end it. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me about Jon Gray, and also reminding Rangers fans that it could definitely be worse. And I'm sorry.
It was worse for you last year.
It was worse. now everything's flipped. You know, I would have killed to have some of those home being actually good at home where the Rangers were not. And sorry if it felt like I was rubbing it into Rockies fans. I'm just trying to enjoy the fun that might be coming. Who knows? It'll still be probably a little bit of a rough year next year, but hopefully not as bad. But where can the fine folks listening to Locked On Rangers find you and your work, Mr. Paul Holden?
I am at Paul Holden 33 if you want to follow me directly, but we are at LO Rockies for your Locked On Rockies podcast, your daily Rockies stuff. And we're also on YouTube now, so you can go subscribe to us there on the YouTube channel. And that's where we'll be, free and streaming on all your favorite streaming services. I'm excited for the AL West next year. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a hot mess of an AL West, and I am very much looking forward to that. Looking forward to Jon Gray, and I'm hoping that Trevor Story can either go to Seattle so you can see him or come back to the Rockies and give you some little bit of Rockies joy. But that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Rangers. Thank you guys so much for listening, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.